What's the weather like where you are, Wally?
Transitioning from winter to spring with a return to winter on a 24-hour basis. I often
Exciting
say,
times.
huh?
Exciting times right now.
Yes, 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 yes. All transitional and transformational.
Well, people are probably wondering, man, what is going on right now live on GLC? Well, we are working with new technology for GLC, God's Learning Channel. Very excited. And also excited to be with you with Wally Wood as well. Um, it's showing to be live. It's about to be live on the master play any second here. And we're always grateful for the people who are watching, who are concerned about true news. Here we are, folks. And just seconds away, this is Hightower. This is a soft launch of what we're doing right now. Again, with new technology. It's not just live on Facebook, but it's also live on TV towers. Any second now, TV towers, all the major cable networks that GLC is on, and more and beyond. And what an exciting time! What an exciting
Amen.
time! So glad, there's not many networks now that can speak the truth, freedom of speech. That's GLC. It's 7:30, folks. You're watching Hightower right now. This is Brant Fricker coming at you. You've seen many shows, Word on the Street, As Goes Israel with Avi Lipkin. You'll see more of that in real time. All the networks, TV towers, cable, online platforms. And here we are right now tonight. You may or may not know the face on your screen, but if you watch GLC regularly, you probably do. It's Wally Wood, named God's Newsman. And Wally, you don't always like it when I sing your accolades, but you are God's newsman as named by David Wilkerson. It's important for people to know that there's great ministries out there. There's a new generation of people in the prophetic community. But also it's important to know that the time tested and true voices like Wally Wood is known. And you may not have heard of him yet, but you have heard of David Wilkerson. So here we are live on my Facebook page and GLC's Tulsa Spotlight, Dallas, and more. And of course, TV towers, all the cable networks, Roku, other online applications. It's Hightower. And what does that mean? High above the fog of the media war, high above the lies. Folks, you really can't trust what you see on television or hear on the radio, but you can trust a true news that are coming from people that are not bought and paid for. And GLC is not owned by anyone but the Lord, and by you, the supporters of GLC. Go to glc.us.com to be able to support this. And again, you're not supporting the show, you're supporting GLC Network. I'm Brant Fricker. It's so great to be with you on Hightower. Wally Wood, God's newsman, the author, speaker. My gosh, you started the first news agency for NASA as a news anchor. You had an encounter with the Lord that took you in a different direction, studying and teaching on the New World Order since the 70s.
Yes.
So very credible source. So happy to have you with me. How you doing there, Wally Wood?
I'm doing great, Brad. It's so good to be part of this new venture on your part. And I'm always glad to be a part of your show. And I'm looking forward to however this thing is going to go as far as the topics we cover and things of this nature. I think that there's some explanation needed for the term God's newsman at this point. It's nothing braggadocious. It started with Hilton Sutton back in the early 80s, a former senior prophecy teacher across the country, well known in his day. He's since passed on, but I called him Pops and he called me Sonny Boy. And as I shared with him my vision for doing world news from a biblical perspective, using professional journalists as believers in reporting the news, as he got deeper into that vision, that's when he came up with that term. I consider you God's newsman. and you're definitely fulfilling that role. And this was in the early days of my ministry. And years later, about 10, 12 years later, David Wilkerson picked up on it as we sat down at his makeup room here in Houston at the old theater here, music theater. And he had interestingly sent me a letter months before we were to meet. And this was in March of 77, as I recall correctly. And in this letter, he said, "Dear Wally, the Lord woke me up this morning at 3 a.m. and your name was on my mind. You and I have never met. I had to wait for my secretary to come into the office today to verify who you are, that you're on our enrollment rolls as a subscriber, and that the Lord told me that you needed to talk to me about something. So meet me on the third night of my 3-night crusade in Houston at the Music Hall, and let's see what this is." And so in August of 77, I went, introduced myself to him the third night. We sat down in his makeup room and dressing room, and I shared with him some things that the Lord put on my heart that he wanted David to know about. And it changed the course of David's theological, eschatological teachings from that point on. J.R. Church, Prophecy in the News, became another good close friend. And he also picked up that phrase and called me God's newsman. So it comes with high credibility. I didn't push this on anybody. It just came out. So I have to believe that the Lord is the one who gave the title. But that's how it all got started. From there, of course, I went into NASA in the 70s, late 70s, mid 70s, and eventually started the very first news bureau for the space program. And I became bureau chief of my own news bureau there. So it was about 25 years spent at NASA. And I grew a great deal of knowledge, talking with scientists and astronauts, engineers, you name it. It was all part of the makeup of my being educated in this area of a new world under development. Mm-hmm. And we even talked about a cashless society on board the space station, a future space station. And so that's where this all was birthed. And so here I am in my 70s, and we are now venturing into areas that the Lord is opening doors for us in. And I think he wants to get the word out there on a more broader scale than ever before. So that's where all this really got started.
Well, and what a time it's been, for decades now. You've been revealing what the Earth flag was. Most of you folks, did you know there's an Earth flag? Did you know there's a planetary constitution that's been written?
Yeah, an Earth Parliament, Earth Parliament that now sits.
Right. Some of you were taken aback when President Trump announced a space force. Well, you probably didn't know that there was a planetary constitution and flag. So many things that have been put in motion. Of course, Wally, you've talked about these decades before they came to be because you've had insight with the scriptures. Mm-hmm. You've also had, and of course, your research as well, the books that you have. I hope you don't mind me directing people to your website, WollywoodMinistries.com. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Right. So WollywoodMinistries.com.
That's the first of 5 websites that I have. And but it all started with the writing of a book entitled The Cashless Society, A World Without Money in 1972.
Right.
We are 50 years into what was unveiled in this small little 30-page book. It went worldwide. It was translated into 15 different languages. And if you can see it from where you're looking, the plastic card that's on the front, that's got the black stripe on it, I designed that, and there were no black stripes on cards at the time. This was 1972. The debit card didn't exist. The credit card didn't have the black stripe. And it was in this book that I talked about how people would one day use their watches to pay for groceries. And here we have the smartwatch, and people are buying their groceries using their smartwatches. So this is all from the very beginning. And that second book that came out was called The Embedded Internet, The Final Evolution. And here I talk about how the world would one day, the internet would be attached to everything you touch and everything that touches you. This was 12 years before the Internet of Things came out.
Right.
First book came out, it was 20 years before the internet came. So I called it CENTCOM for Central Computer. So to live through the evolution of this, Brant, has been one dynamic experience from the very beginning. And to see all this unfold live, if you will, really takes my breath away. So that's where it got started.
Well, was very excited to have you. I had to grab something real quick off set. You saw a picture of me that may have looked like Guardians of the Galaxy. No, that was me. I didn't have a raccoon on my shoulder, and that's a joke too. Interesting. We are live in real time right now over cable, over TV towers. West Texas, New Mexico, parts of Colorado, Oklahoma, of course, and of course all the major cable networks that GLC is on, as well as Roku, of course, YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching this on multiple Facebook pages, you can know this is local, regional, and global. And not just limited to social media. Thank God. Wally, it was so interesting how easy it was to be shut down. And it just reminded me of the need to be on multiple platforms and networks. Well, folks, that's what you're watching right now in real time. It's 7:40 p.m. Central Time. This is in real time. If you're watching us over the air, over the bunny ears, over cable, of course, so many people watching us digitally as well, and it's only expanding. If you want to support freedom of speech, you need to support the last bastion of American freedom on media, and that's glc.us.com, glc.us.com. Of course, you'll see the things on your screen advance even more as we continue to advance, but it's just so exciting to have you part of this very first one, Wally, because this falls in line with the prophetic nature of your teaching.
Yeah, kind
And
of
you
pioneering,
still
isn't it?
go out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You still go out and teach too.
Well, touching on that pioneering part, I've got to mention one of our other websites is diginomicscentral.com, diginomics for digital economics, central.com. And the only reason I bring that up is because it plays on this cashless society concept. Mine was the very first book ever written about this back in the 70s. And I came up with that word diginomics in 1998 for digital economics.
Wow.
And now it's being taught in college class courses in Europe. There are major conferences and workshops on a global scale under the heading of diginomics. And Webster Dictionary picked it up in 2007. Now, I came up with that word in 1998, and they picked up the word in 2007 and gave me credit for coming up with a new word in the English language because it didn't exist. So again, speaking of pioneering, this is another example of how the Lord has had me positioned in such a way to start the ball rolling, if you will, and get things moving and to give high tower observation, if you will, to the development and evolution of this new world. And that's where we are. Everything that's happening right now is part of the architecture of this new world in development. And in other episodes, we'll probably share a lot of the testimonies and quotations of some of the better known, world known people who would call this anything but a conspiracy theory. And that's
yeah. Just recently,
that's kind of become my crawl at this point. Is it's not a theory when you start talking about conspiracies, but it's been politicized as such. And those of us who talk about these things are, we are isolated from society as being kooks. And here I am, a professional news director, journalist, and this has been my research since the late 60s and early 70s. I can tell you it's not a theory. It's a deep look.
It's not. It's news.
Yeah.
It's truth. It's fact. Just go to the government websites. The cashless society, the cashless system has already been signed into executive order. Did you know that, folks?
Yes.
over a year ago. Of course, over a year ago, your rights have been signed over by this administration to the World Health Organization. Did you know that? I had a news show with Brigitte Gabrielle, news you can act on, 31 million households. And still, it was a challenge to get people to even call their local representatives. I really don't know what it's going to take, Wally, but I'm just focusing on the lions out there. God bless the sheep and the herd. But folks, it is time that he who has an ear or she who has an ear, let them hear what Jesus is saying to the churches. Everything the Bible says is true, and it's coming to pass. China, they have had over 1 billion cameras. Of course, during the shutdown, no one talked about one of the greatest architectural feats in modern times. Billions of tracker towers put up. Don't talk about that, do you? Is your cell service any better, folks? No, it's not. And so, again, the Bible is true. You just have to be aware. You do not have to walk in fear. The Bible tells us that we haven't been given a spirit of fear, but a sound mind, and walking in love, walking in wisdom, not being ignorant of the enemy's schemes. Right now, the major headlines, Wally, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of prophecy, a lot of books, I'm sure, being written about this upcoming April 8th eclipse as well. And I know that Jonathan Cahn had a lot to say, with his latest books as well. Current events. Do you think there's going to be a major significant event happen around this time? What saith thee? Anything on your radar?
Well, I can't necessarily relate what's on my radar to the coming eclipse, but I think that the eclipse itself is a call for everybody to be alert to the course of events that will be taking place and are already, but to a greater degree. I've been focused here of late on the man that's about to be unveiled. And his unveiling will come very, very soon. A voice will arise out of Europe that the world leaders are already paying attention to, not publicly, but he's building for himself a force of supporters among the world leaders as being the most stable and balanced voice among the leaders. They're giving him every opportunity to be heard across the spectrum of issues facing the world. And he's got a track record, and he himself is a former politician in the past. He's been in exile for a good number of years now, but he's coming back. And it reminds me of what prophecy says about the man, that he was, he is not, and yet he shall be. And we see that being played out right now in this one man's life. I'm not going to be so bold, and I consider it to be unwise to mention him by name at this moment. I'm going to let the critics of the day and the events of the day cast their own light on him. I am telling you that very, very soon, and I say within less than 5 years, probably within the next 3 years, this voice is going to come forth, and everybody's going to pay attention. He's very handsome. He's very photogenic. He's very sure of himself, and he doesn't waver. Unlike the average world leader today, he does not waver. And that in itself becomes a strong point in a world that's looking for some sense of stability at the global level. And I've been watching him for a number of years. And to me, he is my number one candidate to fulfill the prophesied role of the Antichrist. And the timing, again, is perfect. For such a time as this, in the fullness of times, this is happening. So even in the midst of all of our political happenings over here, including our upcoming federal national election for president, this rising voice out of Europe will soon come on the scene. And then everything pertaining to this man, the course of this man's life, is going to impact everybody on earth. So you can't pray it away. You can't pick it. You can't vote it away. This is going to happen because it was prophesied. And again, I've said a lot of things about the nature of the man who would rule the world, and it's happening. And it's going to come into the broad daylight very, very soon. Events will see to it.
Well, the
So,
stage has been set for centuries, but even
yeah,
even King Charles has talked
sure.
about the need and necessity for a one world leader. He's been talking very openly about that. You don't see that
Yes,
in your mainstream media here in America, of course, folks. But the stage has already been set, and short of the name being announced, now I have seen footage of a former leader being cheered by a UN crowd, and they're calling him their savior. I don't know if
yes,
this is the same one or not.
yes. I will
Well,
agree. It's the
well,
same man. It's the same man.
we're
And
told to watch and pray
yeah,
and
and
to be
and
ready.
be wise to the times. That's where I fear that the church, the activist church, falls short.
Hmm.
We think that we can change things by just getting a loud enough voice and strong enough numbers behind us to change the tide. And when you take that position, you're denying the power of that which was prophesied.
Hmm.
And Jesus himself said it. When you see these things happening, know that I'm at the door. And the generation that sees these things, of which I've spoken, will not pass away until all had been fulfilled. And that included his second coming. So the generation that saw the unfolding of this new world like never before in the history of man would not cease to exist until he split that eastern sky. That's how close we are. And every time I say that, I get goosebumps. This is where the church's attention should be, is the excitement of knowing that we're the generation that will usher in his return and, spend our time learning to become effective evangelists. You've heard me say this before, Brant. I've saved more people at a Jack in the Box than I ever have behind the pulpit of a church.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, you're right, and of course, dear friends watching, I believe Todd Pitts there in Amarillo. What a mover and shaker! Ron Till,
Yeah,
Jeremy Sutton in Midland. Incredible pastor Woody Robinson in Dallas. Of course, so many others. Sherry Todd in Oklahoma City, prayer warriors and preachers and evangelists, and those with the prophetic gift, modern day prophets, not profiteers, but the
right.
prophets who speak the word of the Lord. It's not the latest fad. It's making Jesus known. And that is our job, is it not? With the
Yes.
time that we have. I don't know about you, Wally, but I live with an urgency to make sure everyone possible knows that, you know what? God is real. God loves you. Jesus is real. And the Bible is true. And in the fog of war, the fog of propaganda, the fog of lies, we can have a strong and mighty tower, high tower,
Yes.
to be able to see above and beyond those things. Whether you're pre or post or
Right.
all or whatever, the bottom line is that the message is to always be ready, always be praying.
Yes.
And if you have a place of authority or position or influence, you are a watchman on the wall. You are to tell the people, you're to warn the people. Jesus said, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. There were warning cities on hills. They use fire, they use lamps. You can't put your lamp under a bowl. People don't realize the context of that. There was a penalty for those who did not sound the alarm, a penalty for those who did not shine the light, who covered their lamp. We are the light of the world, and you are to shine your light where you are, folks, in every sphere of your influence. It's great that there's TV personalities and rock stars and superstars, so to speak. Hey, I get to interview a lot of celebrities, but they're just people. We are all just people. The ground is level at the foot of the cross, and the cross is what we need to be telling people about, not the latest fad. But there are valid concerns and a lot of prophetic things that are being brought up with this upcoming event. We don't know all the details. A dear friend Todd talking about 7 cities named Nineveh that this
Yes.
eclipse will pass through. It's going to pass over my place. But you know what? we know that God is speaking loud and clear. He is showing his signs. We know that the National Guard and nuclear experts are going to be in our area for some reason, along with over 150 state troopers. Why is that? What is really going on, folks? We don't know. Recently, the panhandle of Texas and West Texas, the last bastion of American freedom, as goes West Texas, the panhandle, folks, as goes America. I can guarantee you that. They were under
That was
attack.
California.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, California. I mean, gosh, but it's amazing how stories go away as a part of the agenda to subjugate the children of God, to silence them, to bring everyone into what some had called in the past a prison planet.
Yeah.
Well, we know the enemy's goal is to kill, steal, and destroy. But the cashless society is already a matter of fact underway. The social credit system is already a matter of fact underway. Klaus Schwab and his false prophet, the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization want to control your lives and actually diminish life here on earth so that you will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, you better speak against the tide, stand against the tide, and do what you can. Wally, you said that we shouldn't be an activist church, but we should at least vote, should we not?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. You exercise the fullness of the rights that you're given. Uh, I am cautious to the credibility of my Lord to be wise in my performance. I capture that. I do not want to come across as a kook, just for lack of a better term, just because I'm acting kooky. Okay. The When he said, "Go forth and make disciples," what kind of a disciple makes disciples? We never think about that. What kind of a disciple makes disciples?
Interesting.
Because that's critical. And it takes the right kind of personality and character and performance to be so positioned as to gain people's interest in who you are and why you are the way you are, so that you can make disciples by making him look good. There's a lot more involved in being an effective evangelist in a day when people will not adhere to sound doctrine. And he sent us into a world made up of such. How do you succeed at that? I spent a great deal of time paying attention, being, what did Paul say? I forget the word right now, but pay attention to yourself. Don't just go off with passion just because it seemeth right unto thee to do. Okay? And pay attention to who you are and what you are and how you behave, because you're not just representing him, you're resembling him.
Wow.
That makes a difference. As he is, so are we in this world. And that is part is the fullness of what he is. How was it he was able to sit down and have picnics with sinners and not condemn them and not make them feel guilty? They wanted to be around him.
Right.
That's the kind of person we want to be. We don't want to chase people away. So we'll be taking more look into this as we go along, because it's critical to the times we're living in. And my testimony is full of extreme examples in which I saw the Spirit of God step in and change the course of action just because I am a serious disciple.
Yes, you are. And you're seriously going to be back on Hightower. I'm excited. The time is crucial. But folks, do not fear. Your life's already been written, Psalm 139, before you were born. And
Yes.
you don't have to walk in fear or anxiety. Just walk in strength, walk in fearlessness, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might, and put on his armor. We're warriors. Doing this and this and this doesn't take you out of the battle, doesn't take you out of the game.
Right.
You are in it. and there's a battle for your soul, but we know who wins. But it has been written. You can't have the beginning of the Bible and the end of it without your story in there.
Yes.
So Jesus was the original red pill prophet, and he works everything to the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So stand fast and be fearless. Do all that you can, and don't be distracted and tossed to and fro by every wind of teaching. Can't go wrong with the word of God. It is
Amen.
true. And it is living and active, and it is sharper than any double-edged sword. Didn't plan on showing that, but there you go. It's an offensive weapon. We are to decide, means to cut in half. Decide who this day you're going to serve, and stand strong and stand fearless. So happy that you've been watching Hightower live in real time on GLC Network and TV towers and cable networks and around the world and all the digital platforms, and expanding. So thrilled to have you with me, Wally Wood, and just pray God's blessing on you. Can't wait until the next time that we do this Hightower. In the meantime, folks, go to wallywoodministries.com. That's wallywoodministries.com, and support free speech as well. Go to glc.us.com. There's none other than glc.us.com doing what it's doing in West Texas and the Panhandle. Some of you are watching on Channel 20 in Amarillo. We love you. Amarillo, one of the strongest cities for that. So let's be strong together. We'll see you next time.